Northern Italy, April 10th, 1940, 14:30 hours. Corporal James Mitchell knelt beside the dying woman and made a promise he couldn't keep. "You're mine now," he said in broken German, holding water to her cracked lips. "Under my protection, nobody's going to hurt you." She looked at him with eyes that had seen too much, weighed perhaps 80 pounds, her Wehrmacht auxiliary uniform hanging like a burial shroud. Behind them, Private Danny Cohen shifted uncomfortably, rifle ready, watching the bunker entrance. "Mitch, we gotta move," Cohen said quietly. "Captain's gonna want to know why we're late." Mitchell ignored him. The woman, Katherina the other prisoners had called her, was dying not from wounds, from starvation so advanced her body was consuming itself. Her pulse fluttered like bird wings. Her skin was cold despite afternoon heat. "Can you walk?" Mitchell asked. She tried, failed, collapsed back against rubble. Mitchell made a decision that would haunt him for 40 years. He lifted her carefully. She weighed nothing and carried her toward the jeep. "You're really doing this?" Cohen asked. "Yeah." "You know what they'll say." "I know." What Mitchell didn't know was that Katherina Becker was carrying a secret that would force him to choose between duty and conscience. That his promise of protection would cost him everything. That 40 years later, the truth would finally surface and prove that some promises echo across generations, even when they destroy the people who make them. April 15th, 1940, 6 hours earlier. Communication Station Sierra 7 sat in a hillside 15 kilometers outside Bologna. 7 German personnel, cut off from their retreating forces, debating surrender while their food ran out. Katherina Becker, 26, auxiliary communication specialist, sat against the bunker wall and thought about dying. It wasn't dramatic, just a slow fading. 3 months of inadequate rations. 15 kilograms lost. Her periods had stopped. Her hair fell out in clumps. Her body was cannibalizing muscle tissue to survive. Sergeant Klaus Weber, the commanding officer, gathered everyone that morning. "We have food for 2 more days," he said. "No ammunition, no orders. Americans are 5 kilometers south. We need to decide." The 5 male operators argued. The 2 women, Katherina and Ilse Brandt, the cipher specialist, sat silently. They had no voice in military decisions, even decisions about their own survival. But Ilse leaned close to Katherina and whispered, "Did you destroy it?" Katherina nodded slightly. Everything that mattered. If they find out, they won't. What they were discussing, what Katherina had hidden in the final days before collapse, would change everything. But in that moment, starving and exhausted, Katherina believed it would die with her in the bunker. She was wrong. Battalion Aid Station, 1600 hours. Captain David Friedman examined Katherina with the clinical detachment of a doctor who treated too many casualties. "Severe malnutrition," he told Mitchell. 40 kilograms, maybe less. Another week and she'd be dead. You probably saved her life. Mitchell watched Katherina sleep fitfully on the cot. Something about her, the intelligence in her eyes, the dignity she'd tried to maintain even while collapsing, reminded him of his sister. Sarah was 24, teaching school in Cleveland. Similar build, similar determination. "I want to stay," Mitchell said. "Make sure she's all right." Friedman raised an eyebrow. "She's not your responsibility anymore, Corporal." "I told her she was under my protection. That makes her my responsibility." "You said that in German? You're mine now?" "Yeah, meant she was under U.S. custody, that we'd treat her fairly." Friedman exchanged a glance with Sergeant Rivera, the medic. Some unspoken communication passed between them. "Be careful with that phrasing," Friedman said quietly. "Some people might misinterpret your intentions." "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that a young corporal showing unusual interest in a female prisoner might attract attention you don't want." Mitchell felt heat rise in his face. It's not like that. I believe you, but others might not, especially if you keep hanging around. So I should just leave her. I'm saying be aware of how it looks." Mitchell stayed anyway. April 16th, 1945, Battalion Headquarters. The trouble started the next morning. Captain Thomas Riley, Battalion Adjutant, called Mitchell to his office. Riley was 42, career officer, saw regulations as scripture. "Corporal Mitchell, I've received reports that you've been spending excessive time with a German prisoner. Care to explain?" Mitchell stood at attention. "Sir, I'm assisting medical personnel with prisoner recovery. The woman I brought in yesterday was severely malnourished. I wanted to ensure she received proper care. The aid station has medics for that." "Yes, sir. But I made a promise to her. Told her she'd be safe. Wanted to make sure that was true." Riley studied him. "You're aware of fraternization regulations?" "Sir, I'm not fraternizing. I'm ensuring a prisoner receives proper treatment according to Geneva Convention." "The Geneva Convention doesn't require personal attendance by capturing officers." "No, sir." "So why are you really there, Corporal?" Mitchell chose his words carefully. "Because she reminded me of my sister, sir. Because letting her die from neglect after capturing her seemed wrong. Because the war is almost over and treating enemies with basic decency might help with post-war reconciliation." Riley's expression didn't change. "Noble sentiments. But you're getting too personally involved. Return to your unit. The prisoner will be processed through normal channels." "Sir, that's an order, Corporal." Mitchell saluted, turned to leave. "Mitchell," Riley added, "I'm going to be watching. If there's any indication you're developing inappropriate relations with this prisoner, you'll face court-martial. Fraternization with enemy personnel is a serious offense. Understood?" "Understood, sir." Outside headquarters, Cohen was waiting. "That bad?" "Riley thinks I'm fraternizing." "Are you?" Mitchell shot him a look. "She's a human being who needed help. That's it." "Yeah, but Riley's not wrong about how it looks. Young guy, young woman, enemy or not. People talk." "Let them talk. Easy to say until it's a court-martial." They walked in silence. Finally, Cohen said, "You really going back to the aid station?" "Yeah? Even after Riley's warning? He said I couldn't fraternize, didn't say I couldn't ensure proper medical care." Cohen grinned. "You're either really noble or really stupid. Probably both. Aid station, 1800 hours. Katherina woke as Mitchell arrived. She looked stronger, still skeletal, but more alert. "You came back," she said in accented English. "Said I would." "The officer, he did not forbid it." "Doesn't matter." She studied his face. "It matters. You risk trouble for enemy prisoner. Why?" Mitchell pulled a chair close to her cot. "Because I made a promise. Because you're a person who deserves care. Because—" He stopped. Because you remind me of someone. Your sister?" Mitchell was startled. "How did you know?" "You have photograph. In your pocket. I saw when you carried me. You look at it sometimes with sad eyes. She's important to you." Yeah, Sarah. She's a teacher, 24, about your age. I had brother, Katherina said quietly. Died in Russia 2 years ago. Sometimes I see him in dreams. They sat in silence. Outside, artillery rumbled distantly, the war grinding on. Katherina, Mitchell said carefully, at the bunker when we found you, were there documents, equipment, anything your unit was trying to hide? Her expression shifted, closed. Why do you ask? Just procedure. Understanding what your unit was doing helps with intelligence assessments. We were communications, radio operators, nothing special. But you were cipher specialist, right? You worked with coded messages? Yes. Encoding, decoding, routine work. Mitchell sensed evasion. Did you destroy everything before surrender? Yes. All equipment destroyed. All documents burned. All of them? She met his eyes. All that mattered. Something in her phrasing caught his attention. All that mattered. Not all documents. All that mattered. Katherina, if there's something, anything that might be important, you should tell me. I can help, but only if I know the truth. There is nothing, she said firmly, then softer. And if there were, why would I tell American soldier? You are enemy. I'm the enemy who saved your life. You are the enemy who made promise you cannot keep. What does that mean? She turned away. It means promises during war are meaningless. You cannot protect me. You cannot ensure I am safe. You can only make yourself feel better about what happens to prisoners. Mitchell felt stung. That's not fair. No. Then tell me, when they send me to America, to prison camp, when I am processed like cargo and shipped away, will you be there? Will you keep your promise then? I'll do everything I can. Everything you can is nothing, she interrupted. You are one corporal. I am enemy. The system will take me, and you will return to your life, and your promise will be forgotten. I won't forget. Everyone forgets. She closed her eyes, ending the conversation. Mitchell sat there, troubled. Something was wrong. Not just her cynicism, that was understandable given her circumstances. Something else, something she wasn't saying. April left 1945, Intelligence Review. Lieutenant Marcus Shaw, Battalion Intelligence Officer, summoned Mitchell. Corporal, I need you to debrief thoroughly about the communication station you captured, every detail. Mitchell described the bunker, the personnel, the equipment, the surrender. Shaw listened, taking notes. Then, the female prisoner you brought in, Becker. What was her specific role? Cipher specialist. Worked with coded messages. What kind of codes? She didn't say. Standard military communications, I assumed. Did you find any documents, code books, cipher materials? No, sir. They said everything was destroyed before surrender. Shaw leaned back. Here's the thing, Mitchell. That communication station wasn't standard. It was part of a network that coordinated partisan resistance in northern Italy. Some of those partisans were involved in war crimes, executing prisoners, attacking medical facilities, targeting civilians. Mitchell felt cold. Are you saying Katherina was involved in war crimes? I'm saying she had access to communications that might prove involvement by various German units. If documents survived, if someone hid evidence instead of destroying it, that person could be prosecuted as accessory to war crimes. She wouldn't. How do you know? Mitchell didn't answer. Shaw continued, I'm ordering you to interview her carefully. Find out if anything was hidden, if she knows locations of hidden documents, if she has information about specific war crimes. Sir, she's recovering from severe malnutrition. Interrogation now could... I'm not asking for enhanced interrogation, Corporal. I'm asking for conversation. You've built rapport. Use it. Find out what she knows. And if she doesn't know anything, then you report that. But if she does know something and you don't find out, you're obstructing military intelligence. That's also a court-martial offense. Shaw handed him a file. These are documented war crimes in the sector where she served. Read them, then ask yourself if protecting one person is worth letting those crimes go unpunished. Mitchell read the file that night. It made him sick. 12 American prisoners executed after capture. A field hospital attacked, killing nurses and wounded soldiers. Italian civilians massacred in reprisal for partisan actions, all coordinated through communications networks Katherina had worked in. Did she know about these crimes? Had she encoded the orders? Had she decoded reports of atrocities and said nothing? Or was she just a clerk, processing messages she didn't understand, following orders in a system that used her without her knowledge? He didn't know, and that uncertainty tormented him. April 18th, 1940, the conversation. Mitchell brought Katherina broth. She was sitting up now, color returning to her face. You look better, he said. I am stronger. Your doctors are very good. Katherina, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Her expression guarded. What? The communication station where you worked, did it handle messages about partisan operations? Silence. Did you process communications that might have involved war crimes? I do not know what you mean. I mean executions, attacks on medical facilities, civilian massacres, messages coordinating those actions passed through your station. Did you see them? Did you encode or decode them? Katherina's hands trembled. I was clerk. I processed messages. I did not write them. I did not give orders. But you knew what they contained? Sometimes. And you said nothing? To who? Her voice rose. To my commanders who gave orders. To German authorities who approved actions. I was auxiliary. I had no power. Speaking would change nothing except get me killed. But you knew. Yes, she whispered. I knew. Mitchell felt the weight of it. She'd known about war crimes and stayed silent. Did that make her complicit, or just another victim of a system that crushed dissent? Katherina, intelligence thinks documents might have survived, hidden instead of destroyed, documents that could prove involvement in war crimes for specific units and officers. Do you know anything about that? She looked at him for a long moment. Then, you're asking if I hid evidence? I'm asking if you know where evidence might be. Why? So you can prosecute everyone involved? Punish all who served? So we can prosecute those responsible for crimes? There's a difference between following orders and committing atrocities. Is there? She sounded bitter. Your intelligence officer will not see difference. He will see German soldier who knew about crimes and did nothing. That is guilt enough for punishment. Not if you cooperate. Not if you help expose the ones actually responsible. And if I cooperate, what happens to me? I testify against my commanders, betray people I served with, and then what? Americans thank me and send me home? Maybe. Liars, she said quietly. You will use me, get information, and then prosecute me anyway for complicity. That is how justice works. Mitchell had no response. Because she might be right. That night, Katherina told him the truth. There was a document, she said quietly, a log, detailed record of messages passing through our station, including messages about reprisal operations, prisoner executions, attacks on medical facilities. I was supposed to destroy it when retreat began, but I hid it instead. Why? Because someday someone would claim those crimes never happened. That reports were exaggerated. That history was written by victors who lied. I wanted proof, evidence that could not be denied. Where is it? Hidden in the bunker, in a metal tube, sealed, buried in the foundation. Why didn't you tell me before? Because I did not know if I could trust you. Because cooperating with enemy feels like final betrayal. Because, she stopped. Because what? Because that log incriminates me too. I processed those messages. I entered orders that led to murders. I am guilty, not just silent witness. If I reveal evidence, I condemn myself. Mitchell understood. She was trapped. Hide the evidence and let crimes go unpunished. Reveal it and face prosecution herself. What if, Mitchell said carefully, there was a way to use the evidence without it implicating you personally? What if the law could prove crimes by commanding officers while showing you were following orders under duress? Is that possible? I don't know, but I can try. Why would you help me? I am enemy. I am complicit in crimes against your people. Because you're also a person who tried to do the right thing by preserving evidence. Because punishing everyone involved isn't justice. It's just more war. Because, he stopped. Because you made promise, she finished. Yeah, promise you cannot keep. Maybe, but I'm going to try. April said 1945's recovery. Mitchell convinced Shaw to authorize a return to the bunker. Official reason, recovering potential intelligence materials. Real reason, finding Katherina's hidden log before someone else did. They drove out at dawn, Mitchell, Cohen, and Shaw. The bunker sat empty, already picked over by intelligence teams. Where exactly? Shaw asked. Mitchell consulted Katherina's directions. Northeast corner, foundation, buried under loose concrete. They dug for an hour, found nothing. You sure about this? Shaw asked. That's what she said. Maybe she lied. Why would she lie? To send us on a wild goose chase, to waste our time, to protect evidence from being discovered. Mitchell kept digging. His fingers hit metal. Here! They pulled out a metal tube, sealed with wax. Inside, a leather-bound journal, hundreds of pages. Meticulous records, dates, message numbers, summaries of content. Shaw read in silence. His expression darkened. Jesus Christ, he muttered. This is detailed. Times, locations, units involved. This could prosecute dozens of officers. Including Katherina? Mitchell asked quietly. Shaw flipped through pages. She recorded everything, but most entries are marked received or transmitted. She wasn't giving orders. She was processing them. So she's not culpable. That's for prosecutors to decide. But this, he held up the journal. This is evidence of her cooperation. That counts for something. Will it count enough to protect her? Shaw looked at him. Why do you care so much, Mitchell? Because I promised her she'd be safe. You promised an enemy combatant involved in war crimes that she'd be safe? I promised a human being who needed help that she'd be safe. Now I'm trying to keep that promise. Shaw studied him. You're either the most idealistic son of a bitch I've ever met, or the most naive. Maybe both. So will you help? I'll forward this to appropriate authorities. I'll include a note about her cooperation. Beyond that, I can't make promises. But there's a chance. There's always a chance, Mitchell. But you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that trying to save her might not work. That sometimes promises can't be kept, no matter how hard we try. April 21st, 1940, the hearing. Military authorities convened a hearing to assess Katherina's involvement in war crimes. Mitchell wasn't allowed to attend. He waited outside, pacing, while Cohen sat quietly. You did what you could, Cohen said. It's not enough. Sometimes it has to be. After 3 hours, Shaw emerged. What happened? Mitchell demanded. Sit down. Just tell me. Sit down, Mitchell. Mitchell sat. Shaw pulled a chair close. The evidence you recovered is significant. It implicates several senior officers in documented war crimes. Becker's cooperation in preserving that evidence was noted favorably. And the panel determined she was following orders under military discipline. She had no authority to refuse orders or prevent crimes. Her role was clerical, not command. Mitchell felt hope rising. So she's clear? She's clear of war crimes charges, but she's still a prisoner of war. She'll be processed normally, sent to a camp in the U.S., eventually repatriated to Germany when hostilities officially end. Can I see her? No, she's being transferred to the collection point today, already left. Mitchell felt like he'd been punched. You couldn't have told me sooner? Let me say goodbye? Orders were to move quickly, prevent any possible perception of fraternization. Mitchell finished bitterly. Yeah. So that's it? I saved her life, helped her clear her name, and now she's just gone? That's how war works, Mitchell. People come into your life. You do what you can, and then they leave. Doesn't matter how much you care. System moves on. Mitchell stood. I'm done here. Where are you going? To do my job, since that's all that apparently matters. He walked away before Shaw could respond. April 25th, 1940, the letter. The letter reached Mitchell 5 days later, forwarded from the collection point. Dear Corporal Mitchell, they told me I could not see you before transfer. I understand why. They worry about perception, about fraternization, about American soldier being too kind to enemy prisoner, but I needed to write this, to thank you, to explain. You saved my life. This is obvious. Without your help, I would have died in that bunker. But you did more than save my body. You preserved my humanity. When you said you're mine now, I understood you meant protection, but I also understood you meant I still mattered as a person. That even enemy deserves dignity. That promises can be kept even in war. You kept your promise. You protected me. You risked your career to help me. You found evidence that cleared my name while punishing those truly guilty. I will carry this debt forever, not as burden, but as reminder that even in humanity's darkest hours, there are people who choose mercy, who see enemies as human, who believe that treating people decently matters more than victory. I don't know what happens to me now. I will go to America, to prison camp, eventually home to Germany, if home still exists. I don't know if I will see my family again, if I will rebuild my life, if I will find happiness after so much destruction. But I know this. Because of you, I have a chance. Because you chose to help me, I survive. Because you kept your promise, I can try to become a person worthy of that mercy. Thank you for being good man in terrible time. Thank you for choosing kindness when cruelty would have been easier. Thank you for seeing me as human when law said I was only enemy. I will remember you always. Your grateful prisoner, Katherina Becker Mitchell, read it 3 times, folded it carefully, put it in his pocket next to Sarah's photograph. He never wrote back, not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't know what to say. How do you respond to someone thanking you for basic human decency? How do you explain that keeping promises should be normal, not exceptional? Instead, he carried the letter through the rest of the war, through Germany's surrender, through demobilization, through his return to Cleveland. He carried it as a reminder that small choices matter, that mercy echoes forward, that even when systems fail, individual people can choose to be decent. And sometimes, just sometimes, that's enough. Cleveland, Ohio, June 1940, Mitchell returned to civilian life, married his girlfriend Betty, got his old job back at the factory, tried to forget the war. But Katherina's letter stayed in his desk drawer. He read it occasionally, wondered what happened to her, if she made it home, if she found her family, if she rebuilt her life. He thought about riding through military channels, decided against it. Too many complications. She was enemy. He was victor. Their interaction had been brief. Moving on was the right thing to do, but he couldn't stop thinking about her. Stuttgart, Germany, August 1940. Katherina stepped off the repatriation train into ruins. Stuttgart was destroyed, 70% of the city gone. Rubble everywhere, people living in basements, scavenging for food, trying to survive in a country that had collapsed. She found her parents through the Red Cross. They were alive, living with relatives outside the city, her brother dead in Russia, her sister married to an American soldier immigrating to the United States. Katya, her mother wept, using her childhood name. We thought you were dead. Almost was, Katherina replied. American soldiers saved me. Her father listened to the story, then said quietly, You were lucky. Not everyone is so lucky. No, Katherina agreed, not everyone. She found work as a translator. The occupation forces needed German speakers. Her English was good. Her knowledge of military terminology, useful. The work paid in American cigarettes, which could be traded for food. Life was hard. Germany was broken. Rebuilding would take decades. But Katherina survived, more than survived. She built a new life from ruins, and she never forgot the promise that had saved her. October 1946. The letter. Katherina wrote to Mitchell through military postal services. Didn't know if it would reach him, but needed to try. Dear James, I hope I may call you James. I am writing from Stuttgart, where I have returned after repatriation. Germany is destroyed, my city is rubble, but I am alive, and I have you to thank. I found my parents, they survived, my brother died, my sister married American soldier and has gone to your country. Everything is changed, but I remember what you taught me, that people can choose mercy, that enemies can be treated decently, that promises matter even in war. I want you to know I am trying to build good life. I work as translator for occupation forces. I help rebuild. I try to be person worthy of kindness you showed me. Thank you for keeping your promise. Thank you for seeing me as human. Thank you for proving that even in war, decency survives. I hope you are well. I hope you have happy life with your girl. I hope you remember sometimes that small act of mercy changed one person's life completely. Your friend, I hope this is allowed, Katherina. The letter reached Mitchell in January 1947. 3 months delayed by postal chaos. He read it sitting at his kitchen table while Betty cooked dinner. Felt emotions he couldn't name, relief that Katherina had survived, happiness that she'd found her family, pride that she was rebuilding, and something else. Connection, bond forged in war that transcended normal friendship. He wrote back. Their correspondence continued sporadically for 2 years. Brief letters, months apart, sharing updates. Mitchell had a daughter in 1947. Katherina married a school teacher in 1950. Their lives just diverged. The letters became less frequent. The last letter came in 19 Katherina writing that she was pregnant, that she'd named her husband after Mitchell, not James, but Jacob, one who protects. Because you taught me that protection matters, she wrote, that promises matter, that even enemies can choose to be decent. Mitchell never responded, not because he didn't want to, but because he couldn't find adequate words. Instead, he kept her letters in a wooden box in his desk, read them occasionally when the world felt too harsh. Reminded himself that small acts of mercy can echo forward through generations. Cleveland, Ohio, March 1980. Mitchell was 64, retired, sitting on his porch when a car pulled up. A young man emerged, mid-30s, German accent. Corporal Mitchell? Just Mitchell now. Can I help you? My name is Jacob Richter. Katherina Becker was my mother. Mitchell's heart stopped. She died last year, Jacob continued. Cancer. Before she passed, she asked me to find you, to thank you one final time. Mitchell invited him in. They sat in his living room, Mitchell, Jacob, and Betty, and talked about Katherina. She spoke of you often, Jacob said, not obsessively, but warmly. She said you saved her life, but more than that, you saved her humanity. You proved that even enemies could be decent to each other. I just gave her food and medical attention, Mitchell said quietly. No, Jacob replied firmly. You gave her hope. You proved that mercy was possible. You kept a promise when you didn't have to. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. She wanted you to have this. Inside, Katherina's final letter. Dear James, if you're reading this, I have died and my son has found you. I wanted you to know what became of the starving girl you saved in Italy. I lived a good life. I married a good man. I raised good children who know about the war and its lessons. I worked to rebuild Germany into something better than what we destroyed. I tried to be worthy of the mercy you showed me. I never forgot what you said. You're mine now. Those words meant protection. They meant responsibility. They meant seeing me as human rather than enemy. Every time I doubted whether humanity could survive war, I remembered those words. They were my foundation. Thank you for saving my life. Thank you for treating me with dignity. Thank you for proving that even in war's worst moments, people can choose kindness. I built my life on that lesson. I hope I built well. Your grateful prisoner always. Katherina Mitchell wept, not loudly, steadily. Tears carving lines down his aged face. "She built very well," he said finally. "If she raised you, if she taught you these lessons, she built very well indeed." Jacob reached into another pocket, pulled out the metal tube, the one Mitchell had dug from the bunker 40 years ago. "She kept this," Jacob said, "all these years. Reminder of what she survived, of the evidence she preserved, of the price of silence and the power of speaking truth." Why did she keep it? Because it proved she tried to do right thing, even when it was dangerous. Because it showed that even in terrible systems, individual people can choose to preserve evidence, to speak truth, to resist in small ways. Mitchell held the tube, felt its weight. "Your mother was braver than she knew," he said. "She learned from you," Jacob replied. Epilogue. Cleveland, 19 James Mitchell, died at 77. Among his possessions, his children found the wooden box containing Katherina's letters. They also found a notebook entry dated 19. I've been thinking about Katherina, about finding her in that bunker, about telling her she was under my protection. I didn't think much of it at the time. Just seemed like the right thing to do. But now, 30 years later, I realize that moment defined everything I believe about how people should treat each other. She was enemy. I was victor. I could have let her die or treated her with indifference. Instead, I chose mercy. Not because I was heroic, but because she was human. And humans deserve care. That simple choice, treat people decently even when you don't have to, is the only thing from the war I'm proud of. Everything else was necessity or tragedy. But choosing mercy was choice. Choosing to see her as person was choice. Those choices mattered more than any battle. I hope she remembered. I hope it made her life better. I hope she passed it forward to her children. That's how wars truly end, not with treaties, but with individuals choosing to be decent even toward defeated enemies. That's the only victory that lasts. Coda. Munich, a historian researching American treatment of German POWs, discovered correspondence between James Mitchell and Katherina Becker. An article was published, a small commemoration organized in Cleveland. Jacob Richter, now 74, unveiled a memorial plaque in memory of James Mitchell, 1921 to 98, who proved that mercy and duty can coexist, that enemies can be treated with dignity, and that the best victories come not from defeating opponents, but from recognizing their humanity. May we all learn to say, "You're mine now," as a promise of protection rather than a threat of domination. Few people attended. The story was too small for grand narratives about strategy and victory. But one veteran, former POW himself, said, "Wars are won by armies. A peace is built by individuals who choose compassion." Mitchell chose compassion. That choice echoed through decades. That's the only victory that lasts. The story of James Mitchell and Katherina Becker is small in the grand scope of World War II. But for Katherina, lying in that bunker, hearing "You're mine now," it meant everything. It meant survival. It meant dignity. It meant proof that even in humanity's darkest hours, mercy surfaces unexpectedly. For Mitchell, the decision was simple. A person needed help. He provided it. Nothing heroic, just decent. But decent was heroic. Decent was choosing to see humanity in enemies. Decent was keeping promises when no one would have blamed him for breaking them. That small moment of choosing mercy over indifference created ripples that spread across decades. Katherina lived because Mitchell chose decency. Her children existed because she survived. Her grandchildren learned about mercy because she taught them. The lesson propagated forward, person to person, generation to generation. This is how wars truly end, not with treaties, but with individuals deciding that enemies are still people. James Mitchell said, "You're mine now," to a starving German prisoner. He meant protection. He delivered on that promise, and in doing so taught a lesson more valuable than any military victory, that we are all responsible for each other. That mercy is not weakness, but strength. That even in war we can choose to be decent, and that choice echoes forward forever. One person at a time, one act of kindness at a time, one promise kept at a time. Especially when no one would blame us for breaking it.